Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, featuring stories from our own subreddit, so I can pretty much guarantee that you have not heard these stories before. If you are interested in me reading your own story, then please head over to r/ripestories on Reddit and feel free to post your own story there. Without any further ado, let's dive right in. Way too dangerous joke. So, way back in the day, back before all the kids had cell phones in the early 2000s, I used to lifeguard at a town park that was part of a series of town parks all along the coast of Long Island, New York. Most of these parks had cabanas, pools, picnic areas, and access to the ocean. The ocean and pool lifeguards were different branches of the same organization, but to make finding missing children less of an issue, all people from both branches are involved in the search. The barrier island will also close all beaches and parks, not letting people leave or enter until the missing person is found. On this one fateful day in the summer of 2002, a massive thunderstorm starts to roll in. We all blow our whistles, clear the beach, clear the pool, and get people moving on their way. About half an hour later, we get a frantic call from a kid's mom. The kid is lost, his last known location was at our park. Now, the thunderstorm is just starting to hit land. Lightning is hitting the beach, the basketball court, and the flagpole 15 feet away from me. So we begin the process of calling all of the other parks to begin the searches and shutdowns. Within 5 minutes, 7 miles of beachfront property and parks were closed, no one in, no one out. Every lifeguard, both pool and beach, are now searching all over their parks, the beach, picnic areas, pools, opening up all of the cabanas, everything. We were out there with the rain coming down, lightning hitting 15 feet away from us for about 30 minutes. That is when we get the call to come back to our stations, dry off, and enjoy the rest of the stormy weather from the safety of a structure where we don't have to roll the "let's see if we cannot get hit by lightning" dice. The kid was at our park with his aunt and cousins. They, and I mean all of them, the kid, his aunt and his 2 cousins, left when we started to close the pools due to the storm. The aunt, in her infinite wisdom, decided to play a joke on her sister. The kid's mom called her on one of those early 2000s flip phones and asked to talk to her son. The aunt said, "Oh crap, we left him at the park," and hung up. The now obviously concerned mother calls into our guard booth to report the missing child and start the dangerous situation that over 200 lifeguards and park staff were put into because the aunt decided to play a stupid joke. This has happened many years ago and I no longer lifeguard, so this may be used in a video. Guys, I'm curious, did you ever have any dangerous situations at the ocean? To be completely honest with you, years ago in high school, when we were on a class trip near the ocean, I actually almost drowned. That was probably one of the scariest near-death experiences I've ever had. Did you ever have something like that? Feel free to let us know in the comments. I forgot to mention, the first story was posted by user Geldin311 on our subreddit r/ripestories. The next one was posted by user Byzantium63 and is titled, "Officer, someone took my $5. This story is one of the many intriguing interactions I had with the public while I was working as a police officer in the late 90s. I worked the midnight shift, which gave me a unique opportunity to interact with some of the more interesting members of the community. I worked as a police officer in a large city on the east coast of the United States in the inner city in a district with one of the highest crime rates in the US. One night in autumn, while watching as a shop owner closed his sandwich shop, making his way safely to his car with the day's earnings, a routine task without which there would be numerous muggings, I was approached by a middle-aged African-American woman who looked very disheveled and had a look of concern on her face. I asked how I could help her. The woman proceeded to explain to me how she had just been robbed as she was walking down the street. I asked her if she saw who had robbed her and what the person was wearing. She said she was robbed by an African-American male, but she could not describe him. Other than he was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt, she could not tell me his age, facial features, no real description other than he was taller than her, she was about 5'5", and she said he ran by, grabbed the $5 she was holding in her hand and ran off. I explained to her that she had not really given me a lot to go on to investigate the theft or to try and find who had taken her money. I then asked her, why were you walking down the street at 1 AM carrying $5 openly in your hand? She looked at me as if I was stupid and said,
I was on my way to buy some drugs. Isn't there anything you can do to find this person? If not, I need to get a report.
A point of clarification, in this city when a police report is taken, it is given a report number from Central Dispatch and then victim is given a brochure with the report number on it, the name of the officer that took the report and a list of contact numbers for victim's assistance, the courts, how to obtain a copy of the report, etc. I then explained her that she has admitted to me she was on her way to commit a crime when her money was stolen and that if I took the report I would have to arrest her. She did not take that well at all, claiming it was unfair and she wanted her $5 back and couldn't I just make a report so she could get the report number and the brochure. I then asked her why having the brochure was so important. She did not respond. I then asked, you don't think you can take the brochure down to police headquarters and get $5 for it, like a coupon, do you? It does not work like that. She narrowed her eyes and glared at me, made a loud noise and stormed off. That woman was definitely a special kind of stupid. But guys, I gotta confess, I am still fascinated by the story from a few days ago about Brittany Karen. For some reason, I just cannot forget that name. Anyway, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Both likes as well as comments really help push the video forward to get it recommended to new viewers. Thank you so much. The next one is titled EB vs EB, posted by user Mamasan on our own subreddit r/ripe stories. Once again. EB on motorcycle versus EB on horse. This happened a few decades ago, so memory is iffy and I am tech challenged. Backstory: a retired Marine friend of my father had a ranch where he raced horses and did motocross races on weekend and a month. His daughter wanted an Arabian horse for her 16th birthday. He could not afford a full-blooded Arabian, so he got her one that was half-quarter horse. Because it was part Arabian, she wanted an Arabian name for him. Typical kid, she asked her dad and he sarcastically told her he did not know one and if she wanted one, ask the King of Arabia. She did. The family now has a handwritten letter in Arabic from the then real King of Saudi Arabia, kept in a safety deposit box in their bank, with official translations from the US State Department and the Saudi Arabian Embassy. The king named the horse Boshma, not sure of spelling, after a son who had been killed a few weeks before he received the letter. The cast is RM, retired Marine / great guy, P, Princess, RM's daughter, D, my dad, naval officer, me, slightly sadistic brat, and EB, motocross brat. The story setting is, RM's ranch is primarily a horse ranch, but he creates a motocross track on it, just a little different each year. Ranch rules are, if flags at main entrance are out, bikes are welcomed. Flags not out, no bikes. Our story begins. P was due to start university but worried about Boshma getting enough exercise. RM told P about D's kid who had been complaining about rent a rocking horse at local stables. P agreed to my coming on Fridays after school to ride Boshma, but to not come if RM had flags out because he hated those noisy things and would even try to attack them. This is important. After a few times riding Boshma, I began to learn his quirks and gained his grudging respect. Still needed to do a bit of dance before I was allowed to mount. Boshma liked to sidestep every time I mounted, much to the amusement of RM's ranch hands. Much fun watching an entitled horse making a fool of an entitled brat. The embarrassment was worth being able to brag that I got to ride him. This particular Friday, RM told me that Saturday would be the first race of the year and to watch out in case some fool tried to get on the course early to see what had been changed. Which meant we could ride the track at a trot and Boschma could leave a present near turns. Halfway through our ride, I had to visit one of the outhouses. After I was done and tried to mount, Boschma did more than sidestep. He was upset. It took about 5 minutes before he let me on. When I finally got on, I could hear what set him off. A bike. Boschma turned his head to nip at me, but stopped when he heard my growl. He gave me the friendliest look I've ever gotten from him, turned to the sound, laid ears almost flat, and stamped his front feet. I set my boots in the stirrups, jammed my hat on my head, wrapped the reins around my hands and clicked my tongue. Boschma took the lead and began tracking his prey. After a mere 2 minutes, the idiot on bike was spotted in front of us in the track. Between his back to us and the sound of the engine, he had no idea we were there. He just shut off the bike when I called out to him that the race was tomorrow and he was not to be here today. He needed to leave or he would be reported for trespassing and risks being banned from the race. As most know, you should turn off loud sounds and politely walk away, especially because horses do not like motorcycles. EB sneered at us and yelled out,
"Make me, little girl."
He turned on his bike, revving it as high as it could, spun his tires, tearing up the track and sped off along the course. This was no mere ranch horse who would be skittish around loud bikes. This was Boschma, the royal named arrogant a-hole of a motorcycle-hating giant rage monster. I tightened my grip, leaned forward and quietly said, "Sick 'em." Cue Benny Hill music. It was a mile-and-a-half track course. We almost did an entire lap. EB was driving like mad, screaming his head off, trying to stay ahead of the massive, angry, solid black horse with the teen girl laughing like a maniac. Finally, he managed to get off the track and went straight for the main gate. Now, according to the ranch hands and RM, you could hear him screaming over the motor. And the prettiest sight was me and Boschma chasing him with looks of absolute joy on our faces. Boschma stopped on a dime just 10 feet from the gate and by some miracle I was not thrown. Like a happy dog who drove off the mailman, Boschma proudly cantered back to the stable and lapped up the spoiling we all gave him. Strangely, Boschma never sidestepped on me again and would run up to get his tag when I came to ride. The arrogant prince seemed to love patrolling the ranch looking for bikes to chase. I still remember him fondly. Guys, I'm curious, do any of my ripe stars also have horses? You know, I've never really been a big horse guy. In fact, I've only ridden horses 2 times in my life and I absolutely suck at it. But what fascinates me about people owning horses is that for the most part, these people seem to have an incredibly strong relationship with the animal. The next story was written by user Stacy Rose on our own subreddit and is titled Finders Keepers. I wanted to post this last night after I finished babysitting, but due to some issues I had, I did not post it, but I am here posting it today. So like I said last night, I got to babysit this bratty child I have never had the privilege of babysitting before, and I don't think I will ever babysit this boy ever again. I used to babysit back in my teen years and stopped babysitting when I got a real job, so I have not had the experience of dealing with bratty monsters for a while now. Last night I was just sitting at home watching some Netflix when one of my so-called high school friends gave me a call to tell me she was in a bind. I asked her what was wrong and she told me she needed a babysitter for her 6-year-old son and her normal babysitter could not do it because she was sick. I asked her how long did she need me to sit for and she told me she only needed me to babysit for about 5 hours. So, not knowing her kid, I agreed to it. I should have said no. She asked me if she could drop off her kid and I said yes, although I should have just babysat at her house instead. She got my address and dropped off her kid about 30 minutes later. Now, when I first met this little brat, he seemed like a sweet little kid. But I was in for a surprise. This little boy was as cute as can be and seemed to have his mother wrapped around his finger. She told me that he already had dinner, but she did bring toys for him and snacks. She told me that he will basically keep to himself as long as he has his toys. I put some cartoons on TV through Netflix for him after I found out what kind of shows he likes, just in case he got bored of his toys. All was going well for the first couple of hours. He was content playing with his toys, and when he was hungry, I gave him his snacks. By the way, his snacks were mostly candy, which kind of surprised me. I remember asking him if he wanted some fruit, but he made a face at me and said he does not like that gunk. I tried to explain to him that fruits were much better for him and that fruits were natural sweets from nature. He just made a face, I let it go, and figured his mother will have to deal with his sugared up self, not me. Around the third hour he was starting to get bored, so I asked him if he wanted to paint or something. He completely ignored my question and started exploring my house, which normally I don't mind, but I do have some collectibles I don't want children around. He started chasing my cats and I had to tell him to stop because my girls are not used to little kids and I was not sure to how they would react. He cornered one of my black cats and tried to pull her tail and I had to stop him. I gathered up my cats and put them in my bedroom and told him that it is not okay to play with cats like that. He did not like that and started to throw a fit. I told him if he was gonna act like a baby, then I would treat him like a baby, and he calmed down. He went back to playing with his toys for a little bit and I thought things have calmed down. Around this time I decided to close and lock all the doors to the rooms I did not want him in. I checked on my girls and they were all content sleeping on my bed. I came back to the living room and noticed the little brat was not where I left him. I was only out of his sight for a few minutes. I started to panic until I heard him giggle. He was hiding behind the couch and when I found him, he had my phone in his hands. I told him to give me my phone and he said, "No!" I told him sternly to give me my phone or I would get his mommy and tell her he's being a bad boy. This little brat simply said, "Finders keepers." I crouched down and took my phone from him and said, "Finders keepers does not exist here," and put my phone away out of his reach. I then picked up his toys and put them back in his bag and he started screaming. I told him if he was a good boy, he could play with his toys, but since he wants to be a bad boy, I'm putting his toys away. He started trashing on the floor, throwing a complete temper tantrum. He would not stop screaming. I turned off TV and told him that when he calms down he can watch TV and play with his toys. Nope, did not work. I have babysat kids before and normally that trick works, but not this boy. So I called his mother, she could hear him screaming in the background and asked me what I did to him. I told her he was throwing a fit because I took my phone away from him and I put his toys in his bag. I asked her, "What do you do when he's behaving badly?" She said,
Nothing.
I was like, "What? You don't give him time out or punish him?" She said,
No, if he cries, I just give him what he wants. Just give him your phone. He will get bored of it after some time and go back to his toys.
I simply told her I would not do that and that he needs to learn to respect other people's property. She got upset with me, so I told her to come pick up her kid, that I'm not gonna babysit him anymore. She told me I was being unreasonable, that as a friend I should understand she needs some time to herself. I simply said, "I understand why you need time to yourself, but it is not my fault you spoil your kid. I'm not gonna tell you how to raise your kid, but I will tell you I will never babysit him again, and now please come pick him up, or should I call your ex to come pick him up instead?" She did not like that and said she would be on her way. Now, I should mention that her and I were not really friends. I helped her once in high school when she was failing English class. How anyone could fail English is beyond me, but whatever. Her and I never hung out in high school and we were not buddy-buddy. She had her own clique and I stayed with my own friends. So her saying that as a friend thing just kind of put me off. She showed up an hour later to pick up her bratty boy, and as they were getting ready to leave, I noticed he had my art kit in his hands. I asked for it back and he stuck out his tongue at me and said, "Finders keepers." And I looked at his mother, my so-called friend, and she smiled at him and said,
That's right, sweetie.
And I said, "No, that's not right. That is stealing. Now give it back or I will call the police." She looked at me and said,
You would call the police on a child?
I said, "On you, because you are condoning it. Now hand it back and I never want to see you or your child ever again." She yanked it out of his hands rather roughly and shoved it in my hands. She looked at me and said,
"I'm not paying you to watch him after this."
I said, "That's fine, I will just call his father and tell him what happened, and we will see what he has to say about this." And as she started complaining, I closed the door in her face. I did call up the boy's father and found out he has been trying to get custody of the boy because of how his mother spoils him too much and lets him get away with crap. I told him everything that happened and how she did not pay me for watching the boy, and told him that unless he's more well behaved, that I don't think I will be babysitting him ever again. He told me he would pay me for watching him and said he will make sure that his ex knows that allowing their son to get away with petty crap like that is not gonna help him when he is older. He said he still intends to take her to court for custody, and he's got plenty of information against her from teachers and other parents who had to deal with his son, and how his ex reaction was to it all, basically blaming the other parents and the teachers. Even the boy's doctors have tried to reason with his ex, but she won't listen to them and insists that their son is not at fault. He told me that he understands that it is in fact his ex's spoiling him rotten that has gotten his son to be so entitled. Oh, and I found out the story about the regular babysitter was false. She actually quit because of the way the boy behaves. Apparently, I've only dealt with a small amount of how the boy really is. Others have dealt with him biting, kicking and hitting them. And he has broken property that does not belong to him when he does not get his own way. I was lucky that none of my stuff was broken. I did go through my house to make sure nothing else was missing though. About 2 hours after I got off the phone with the ex, my so-called friend called me up screaming because I called the boy's father. I simply hung up on her and blocked her number. I was not gonna listen to her ranting about how she did nothing wrong and how her precious little sweetie did nothing wrong. I simply blocked her, and I have no plans on ever talking to her ever again. Although I am friends with her brother, I refuse to have anything to do with her until she can grow up and take some responsibility. I did get a phone call from her brother asking me what happened, and I told him, and he said he will have a talk with his sister. I told him that when he does tell her that I won't be babysitting for her ever again until she either apologizes or she teaches her son to respect other people's property. He said he has been trying to teach his nephew that, but every time he does, his sister just comes right in and spoils him more. So it is now Sunday, the day after I babysat, and I have not heard anything from what's going on with my so-called friend, but I don't care either. I did get paid for babysitting with an apology from the boy's father. He actually just left after visiting me for a while and catching up. He was telling me more about his problems with his ex and how he just wants the best for his son. I told him I understood and wished him luck in his upcoming custody hearing. I never understood why some parents spoil their kids so much that those kids end up being bratty. They are just gonna end up worse when they are older, and it is best to curb that behavior now while they are still growing. Most children know right from wrong, but not this little brat. He would just scream to get his own way, and it always works with his mother. Not wanting to deal with your child screaming is no excuse to give in to them. If I hear from my so-called friend again, I will leave and update here, but here's hoping I don't hear anything at all. Thank you very much for the long story, Stacy. And the story leads me to the question, have you guys ever babysat before? I gotta be honest, I can probably count the times I've ever babysit on one hand, so I don't really have a lot of experience, but I am curious to hear if you guys have ever babysat an entitled kid like the one in the story. Let us know in the comments. The next one was posted by user Lord Death Goblet on our subreddit and is titled The Wicked Witch in the Family. Little disclaimer, you can use my story, I am alright with that. I am pretty sure that this would not be able to fit into any category, but here is my application for the crazy grandma video idea I have. My grandma is religious, is against LGBT+ community, and only believes in same-sex and race marriage. I'm pretty sure if she saw a mixed-race couple, she would flip her crap. I guess your poor grandma would probably get a heart attack if she would see my girlfriend and me. But anyway, that is not the point of this. Here are all of the reasons that I have against my grandmother. And they are probably out of order with when they happened. I apologize for that. First, with me being pansexual, part of the LGBT+ community, I'm sure she would not welcome me into her amazing life. Number 2. Back in 2013, my grandpa died. When he was alive, my grandma did not do squat. She did not cook, clean, do anything like that. After he passed, she can suddenly walk. She does not need her wheelchair to get around anymore? Wow. Number 3. She cut my mother, her only daughter, out of the will when my grandpa died. She then proceeded to call her curse words and tell her something along the lines of,
"Your children can stay, but you cannot."
Number 4. She did not give my mother a single thing of my grandpa's, sold a lot of very valuable things that held a special place in my mom's heart because they were her father's. Number 5. She made everyone at her old church against my mom for some stupid reasons. I don't go anymore. Number 6. My grandma followed me around in a Walmart last year, or in 2018. I had no idea she was even in Walmart. Number 7. She failed her driver's test over 10 times. She should have never been able to drive. She got into over 2 or 3, possibly even more, accidents going from 2018 to 2019. I do not remember when it happened exactly. She has paralyzed pinky finger from touching a poisonous frog some time ago. She is overall crazy and crap, and I don't want her in my life. But if I cut her out, she will sell the rest of my grandpa's stuff, and I want to get my grandpa's stuff because I don't want her to sell it for some people to buy. He was like the father I never had. Guys, you know what this story reminds me of? Lady Hexalot. If you are one of the OG subscribers that still remembers the Lady Hexalot stories, let me know in the comments. I really cannot say that I don't miss the Just No Mother-in-Law stories, but in the end it's just not worth the trouble. And unfortunately guys, we have already reached the end of the video, but I hope you enjoyed the content. Please don't forget to subscribe to see my daily content. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow. Thank you for watching.